Hey guys, thank you for tuning into CMTEQ channel in the second part of this tutorial on how to design an RGB LED lookup table. So if you just joining us for the first time and you haven't watched part 1 of this tutorial, we are basically writing a C program that will enable us to choose RGB color for an embedded system application, right? So the program is very simple. We basically create two lookup tables. So one will be for the RGB values, as you can see here, and the other lookup table is basically for the color names. Then our task is to basically be able to join the two lookup table in a way that when the user enter the color name red, for instance, and the index of the color red must then be linked with the index of whatever the red color should be for an RGB LED. So that is basically what we did on part 1. So basically we were able to ask the user to enter the color name and be able to print the index of the color the user enter, make sure the color exists. So if the color does not exist on the table, then obviously it's going to return you a null index. So from where we left off, we're now able to find the index of the color that the user enters. So now our task is then to take that index and match it with the lookup table here for the RGB values and then print the resultant RGB values for the specific color. Okay, so what we're going to do that is basically to create variables that is going to hold all the three RGB colors. So we got RGB, right? So now the RGB lookup table is of type unsigned car, right? That is a 2D array. So we're going to create a variable also of type unsigned car, and we basically just going to say R, G, and B. Okay, just like that. So now we've got our three variables that are basically going to hold the value of red, green, and blue. Okay, then we come into our main function here. So what we're going to do here is very simple. So we're basically going to take the index, right, of the color that the user just entered and link it to the RGB table. So as always, we have to start with a comment here that will be link index value to the RGB lookup table, something like that. Okay, now we've got our variable already declared here, unsigned car RGB. So what we're going to say now, we're gonna use an if statement. Okay, so in our if statement here, we're basically going to say if, right? Now if what? Okay, just a quick guess, if what? So if the index, now remember we initialize the index here to be -1. So we're going to say if index is not equal to -1. Okay, so we know that the only time the index value here is going to change from -1 to whatever the index of the color that the user entered is indeed when there is a color available. So make sure the user enter a color that is available here. If the color is not available, it will basically be null, right? So the index will remain -1. But when the color is present, it will then bingo, right? Like in the case of color color red, the index is 1. Then index is going to be now 1 assigned here. So if index is 1, then basically this is going to be true because 1 is definitely not equal to -1. So that will validate true. So if that validate to true, then what do we do then? Okay, we then take that value, the value of this particular index, and link it here. Now to link it is a very simple problem because we are dealing with a 2D array here. So we just have to understand that the first variable here, the index, where we're going to pass the index, is basically for the row here. Okay, we got a couple of row here. Now we don't know. Now let's assume that the index here is basically 1. Okay, so that basically means we are on row 0, row 1. That will be red. Now inside this row here, we got the columns. We got 1, 2, 3 column. So column 0 is for red, column 1 is for green, and column 2 is for blue. So we basically then going to write the first character R is going to be equal to RGB lookup table. Then we pass the value of the row index. So the row index is basically the index. Then we have now to pass the column. Now the column here, the first column is for red, the second column for green, and the last one here for blue. So the first one is 0, that will be for red. Okay, just like that. Now to make things easier here, you can go ahead and just copy and paste, and then you just have to change where you need to change. So this is going to be G and this is going to be blue. Then you must change the index 1. Now here, all we need here is basically the correct index. As soon as we find the correct index, that will determine which row we are here. Then we're going to pull our RGB color out of that lookup table. Now we are basically ready to start testing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this, basically cut it and paste it in here. Okay, so then we can basically go ahead and test this, right? But before we can test it, please don't forget to subscribe to CMTEQ channel and give this tutorial a thumbs up if you find it very useful. Now I'm going to modify here quickly. So I'm going to say the color, whatever color name, and then I'm going to say is RGB. Then I need to pass the coordinate for the RGB color. Okay, so our coordinate is basically going to be the value of R, G, and B. So it's going to be formatted as integer. So %D, right? And %D, like that. Okay, now remember, this is basically an RGB function that we're going to use for our Arduino code to basically pass the parameters for our RGB values. Then the function is going to do the deed for us to basically send in the correct command to give us a color that we want. Now we need to change here the indexes. So it's going to be R, G, and then B, basically to correspond with the correct placeholder. Now we can go ahead and give this a try. Okay, so I'm gonna run. Hopefully everything is fine and we're not going to get problems here. Nothing is happening here. There we go, it's coming. It just took some time there. Okay, please enter the color. Let's go with red. Okay, there we go. The color red is RGB 25500. As you can see, there is red 25500. So we are right on the system there. So now let's actually run a second time. So I'm going to pass green. There we go. The color green is 02550. Let's try one more color. So we're going to pick color blue, right? Color blue. We know what is color blue on our index. Blue is going to be 00255. Whoops, looks like it returned nothing. What is the problem? Well, it could be because it's a small letter here, and here blue on my color name lookup table, it started with a capital letter. That must be the case, which means it is case sensitive here. So let's just run one more time. Okay, then I'm going to use uppercase blue. Then it's returned the correct color. Okay, so now we know what is the problem here, but that's a quick fix. We just have to, this is where we basically making a comparison after the user enter. So we just need to convert this one here to uppercase. So to convert it, we're just going to call up the function, a C string function, that is string to upper. Okay, string to upper, that is this function here. Okay, then we need to pass the color name. Okay, so that will basically convert it to capital. But now if we leave it like this, we're still not solving the problem, because it's gonna convert it to capital, but everything here is not in capital, right? You want to see? Let's give it a quick run again. Then I'm going to red here. Then I get nothing, right? Because it is converting red to capital, but red here does not exist. So to fix this issue, we must basically rewrite all our color name here on the lookup table into uppercases. So it must be black and red, green, blue, and white. Right, now I can basically enter in any way I want, small, mix small letters and uppercases. You can do whatever you want. So long as a name exists here, it will print you the correct answer. So let me save and let's try this again. So let's take yellow. Okay, so we're gonna take yellow, right? Then we put like that, right? So now we've got a mix. Now, but because it is now converting it to uppercase and yellow is in uppercase, then it works. So this is basically it, guys. We've created successfully a lookup table for our RGB values and the color name, and now we're able to link it. So the user can just enter the color name that they want, and we're going to return the variables that must be used onto the RGB function. So now this code here is going to be imported, and I'm going to use it on my Arduino and Raspberry Pi application. So stay tuned and watch that tutorial series so that you can get up to date. And on the next tutorial on that series, we're going to implement the changes where the user is just going to enter the color name on the Telegram application, and then it's basically going to change to whatever the color the user enter. Right, so that is it, guys. Until next time, cheers.